listening to And She Said in the car today, my kid, and I'm really singing along to that one. It's really catchy.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you.
Like how you have like the banjo in there, but still seems like you're kind of moving into more like loops or, electron. I don't know what the right words are.
I don't either. But yeah, no, that's great to hear. And like, yeah, that song to me, it just feels like very, probably the most like authentic song on the album in terms of just like doing what I wanted to do. A lot of the album, I really tried to push closer into being pop and having pop sensibility and like structures that are familiar to people and that you can like grasp onto. Because like the last 7 years I've been doing teaching middle school music at a girls' school, and I think their aesthetic has creeped into my brain now because I've had to dissect all these pop songs that they like and like figure out how to play them and teach them. And so this whole album, which is the whole thing will be out November 15th. Pushed it back because of a little natural disaster. But And She Said is definitely one, and I wanted to bring the banjo. Like I wanted it to be more pop, but I did want to actually keep the banjo in because some of my past solo albums, I was just put the banjo down completely. Yeah,
because it was like your main armor for a while, right? There, and so I could see why you might want to be like, let's explore some.
Exactly.
But now it's creeping back in.
It's creeping back in, and I'm trying to really fuse it so it doesn't feel out of place. Sometimes it's like playing at the same time as like a synth, or just kind of playing these more like poppy hook stuff as opposed to like rolls or claw hammer stuff, which is what I would do with like my band Underhill Rose or my earlier stuff. Yeah,
it's more like a traditional like percussion or whereas like with what you're doing now, it maybe can be more like just a little lead part. Like
totally.
How does your process work? Like when you have the new songs that are more like, I don't know what the words are, but just more not Americana, but like crafted in a studio. Like do you write the song with a guitar or a banjo first and then bring it to that, or do you kind of make loops and add synth parts and then write it that way?
Yeah, it's been more the loops and synths and like letting the music dictate the lyrics, which has not really been how I used to do it. So I think I kind of try and switch it up just to remain like
keep evolving.
Inspired. Yeah, keep evolving and be inspired. And like several of these songs, they started with a groove or a lick or something like that, and then be like, what does this make me think about? Like just try and be really clear, and again, through the eyes of pop music, something that's someone can latch on to. And I wanted it to be a fun album, which a lot of my past stuff has been a little more like, woe is me, I'm feeling the dark feelings.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, which is fine. It's all good. And I know like there's time for all the things, but I found that I've been like, I want to listen to like Beyonce's Renaissance. Like I was listening to that while getting ready to go out for a night. And I was like, I want to do music that's like fun and invigorating and just like different from my past. So the whole, like my past releases. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, it's all over the place, but this one was more start with the loop. And then sometimes I have to figure out like, what do I do with the banjo now? Like figure out how to incorporate it. And sometimes it works and sometimes
do you do it in like a sitting, or is it more like you get a loop going and then you drive around with it for some days or weeks and kind of do you take your time to finish a song, or do you sit down and get manic and stay up all night? Or
it's definitely some manic. Not all night, but sometimes it'll be, it's usually chunks of hours until I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore, and then I'll move on to the next track.
Right.
And then just kind of chunks and then start from the beginning and go through again, and like sometimes scrap an idea altogether. I mean, I've got I'm sure you have some bits and jokes that you're like, I know there's something here, but I can't quite get it to the finish line. So it just kind of, it's sitting on my computer.
When you put out the box set in 20 years,
yeah,
it can have the rare,
B-sides,
deleted,
all the B-sides. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I've done music. I've been doing stand-up for like 10 years, but I started music when I was a teenager. So it's kind of the thing I relate to the most. And what you said about,
awesome.
like in my 20s, all the music I made was like super just really sad, that kind of stuff, which I love that music. But I think maybe there's something for me about just getting older and wanting to be a little more like, a little less woe is me and a little more like, let's have fun. I think that was part of my transition into stand-up was like, I want to make something fun happen sometimes. Like I look back at my 20s and I think every song was just like, I'm sad, I'm angry.
Right.
And I didn't even at the time I was just like, this is what I'm into. But I look back now and I'm like, ooh, that was like pretty heavy-handed with the misery. I'm speaking just about myself personally. Like, but
no, totally. I think, and I think it took me forever to kind of want to grow out of that. Like, people talk about like the angsty teen years, but I feel like mine lasted until the late 30s. And maybe it still is lasting. But sometimes, especially as a performer, you have to perform those songs at shows. And sometimes you're like, I don't want to live in this space.
Right.
Like, I don't want to think about this. And so you got to write a song that you want to sing later, and bring that joy to yourself and hopefully others.
Yeah, I've even noticed a lot of the artists I like you go see them live and it would seem a lot of times they'll pick like their favorite couple slower or sadder songs, but they sort of know at the live show, you got to just keep it up,
totally.
Which is, I always like wanted to hear the sad. I mean, I have like, it's a double-edged sword because one of the things about comedy that is limiting is you do have to try to get the laugh.
Right.
So that's what I like about music is it can be fun, but it can also like the best songs can be these really tragic.
Yeah.
I don't really know that you can do that with stand-up.
I don't know either. I do think with stand-up, what I appreciate about it so much is like the truth-telling aspect of it and just the relatability. And I think that that obviously is shared with musicians and music. But there are some comedians I think who are just like, it's pretty dark and you kind of laugh at just how weird it is. Like, you know what I mean? But that would feel, that would be difficult for me. There's been moments where I was like, Silas, my boyfriend, I was like, I feel like I want to try stand up. And he's been like, I will support you doing anything except that. He's like, it's just, that is the hardest job. And I don't have the guts, the fortitude or whatever, man. So I respect it.
There's a lot of us stand-ups that came from music or,
really?
It's a very common, it's usually like theater or music. Like this podcast is kind of like we get into, it's a lot of comedians and musicians. And part of it is that like, I think comedy and music are kind of the same thing. If you go far enough, or I'm still trying to figure that out.
Right.
But a lot of people go from comedy to music or vice versa.
Which one makes you more nervous to perform?
Now it's I'm very comfortable with stand up because there's like you can get up several times a week at mics and shows. So I think with music it would always be like, this is the one show this month. So I would never get the muscle memory going. But stand up is definitely a lot scarier at first because like you're not holding anything and you're alone. But I kind of like that too because sometimes I would worry I'm letting my band down. And I like in stand up, it's like if I do well, I did that. If I bomb, I don't have to apologize. Like nobody else got embarrassed. It was just me. So
that makes sense.
Like the lone wolf aspect of it.
That can be good and that could be like worse because sometimes I perform solo and with bands. And like sometimes performing solo, I'm just like, this is soul crushing, but and by yourself, but if you were there with someone like a bandmate, you can kind of look at them and y'all are both like, this is soul crushing. And then it becomes a bonding moment, you know?
Yeah. It's like you against them. You can laugh about it together.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just be like, oh, that's a paid practice, you know?
Somebody else sees how much you're suffering.
That's right.
Or sometimes you're playing and like you're like, no one's even
I could just walk away right now and no one would know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've had a lot of gigs like that for sure.
Oh man. Yep. I definitely have.
You seem like you're like we did Tom's story parlor thing, and you seem like you're you are comfortable kind of talking and stuff between songs and telling little stories and stuff, which is cool.
I think I'm somewhat comfortable. I wouldn't say I'm super comfortable. I think I'm always nervous, but I just kind of push through. But I wouldn't say, there's no nerves at all. I also feel like I try to keep the audience in mind because I know that people want to know about you, you know? So I try to like give them something interesting to latch on to. And that helps me kind of figure out what I want to say, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you you've been doing music for a while, right?
Yeah. So I wrote my first song at 14.
Oh, wow.
And played my first open mic at 14, and I was playing guitar and singing. And and then started writing, and all those songs very, very sad.
Mm-hmm. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
I don't trust a teenager who's like well adjusted and happy. It's like later on, this
really
is really
wrong with you. Exactly. I mean, So I mean, I came to music truly as a therapeutic process, like, and I think it felt electric to be connecting with people in that way. And then I went to Warren Wilson College, and I met some other women there who loved to play music, and we were especially interested in folk music.
Yeah.
And so I discovered the banjo, learned how to play banjo, and then formed a band called the Barrel House Mamas. And then that band broke up, and then out of that, Molly Rose and I formed Underhill Rose.
Yeah.
And then that was like a long road of touring all over the country and the Southeast mostly. But then we went to like Ireland and England a couple times.
Nice.
And all the way out to California and like did that whole thing. And then, I had always wanted to push a little, like the music I'd listen. I guess my musical taste started getting wider than just the folk stuff, and I wanted to engineer and produce my own music. And so started a little side project called Eleanor Underhill and Friends, but also like did my solo recording at home and created a little studio at my house. And then like Eleanor Underhill and Friends and my solo album like work are, a lot of those players played on my solo records.
Yeah.
And I could have called them Eleanor Underhill and Friends, as the artist, but I just went with my name because I wanted to kind of allow different people to filter in and contribute to the tracks. And then, so I'm about to release my fourth, solo album.
Yeah.
And then Helene came through, and I was like, oh my God, I don't have it. It doesn't feel right to release it right now. I don't want to ask people to pre-order my dinky little album when they can't, don't have drinking water, and they, their houses are gone. And like, so, I decided to push the album release back to November 15th, because otherwise it would have come out the 18th.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
As of this recording, it would have come out tomorrow. But I was just like, I don't like.
Yeah. I hear you.
It felt so wrong. Yeah. And it's like, the most fun, giggly album I've ever made. So it just feels.
She's asking us to have fun right now. How insensitive.
Seriously.
That she would deliberately time her fun album.
I did.
With all this tragedy.
I knew this was coming.
Look,
and
those of you that don't have water, you should just think about me and listen to me. I've been posting like some I've been going through all my old stand-up clips because I haven't been able to do sets, and I've been posting random, and I've been kind of feeling the same way. Like, I hope I don't look like the most evil dude in the world, because I'm like, look at me during this But at the end of the day, I'm like, well, people still need
to
distract,
laugh.
you know. I mean, I think it's wise of you to wait to have like a live event and all. But you know, yeah, people need the music. They need the laughs.
I think that's where I finally landed. I was like, okay, once I feel comfortable, you know, like I kind of had to like wrap my head around it and be like, you know what? Yes, people like we see all the hardship that people have, you know, are facing, and like there's a lot of people that are contributing and volunteering, and there's all these resources and all this stuff. But I'm like, I need personally, when I look at Facebook or whatever, I would love to see some new music and just something that is lighthearted and maybe not affiliated with the hurricane and the aftermath.
Yeah.
So that's the way I'm thinking about it, is like, yeah, once like a week from now, I'll start promoting it and being like, you know, pre-order the album and, you know, feel good. You know, let's have a little bit of fun and levity.
Yeah. Where's the release going to be?
So there's not going to be like a physical release. It's going to be a digital release.
Yeah.
And
so it'll be on the internet. So
it'll be on the internet. Yeah.
Find it wherever you're listening to this.
Yes. It'll be everywhere that you can buy music or stream music. It'll be there.
Yeah, it's cool. I kind of sampled your stuff, you know, like it kind of seemed like from the Underhill Rose stuff through this latest album that it's like almost the Americana. It's like maybe less and less of that, you know. Yeah. I don't like labeling anything, but like not that what you were doing was Americana, but just kind of more organic, like live in a room music. And it kind of seemed like you've sort of been just getting more and more into like experimentation with the studio, using the studio as an instrument.
Totally, exactly.
Does that sound?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So like Underhill Rose, you know, we basically were singer-songwriters that came together to make music and support each other and sing harmonies on each other's songs. But it was something that you could absolutely like the album reflected what you would see at a live show, you know, and
just
it was
capturing what it is.
Yeah, just organic instruments and singing. On the albums, of course, we would bring in some extra players and stuff like that. But yeah, with like this latest album, I don't know that I can perform any of these songs live because
you need like lasers and stuff.
The studio absolutely has become an ingredient in the outcome, how the songs sound. And there's just so many layers and lots of synths and I mean, I would need a 20-piece band, you know, and I think I've made peace with the fact that my albums are not going to sound like I sound live, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because, you know what I mean?
I think that's almost cool anyway, because it's like you can just listen to the album at home.
Yeah.
So you come out to the live show and it's a little different.
It's different. Yeah. I mean, if you see me, like I might play like the first single that came off is called Just Enough Trouble, and I can perform that, and I do perform that as a solo artist, but it's just my vocal and a banjo. So it's going to sound, you know, it's the same like tempo, it's the same lyrics, it's the same key and everything, but like there's no crazy loops and like harmonies and all the fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean a good song can be in. I love that. Like I think when the Beatles anthology stuff came out, I was in high school. It was like a long time ago. Yeah, that's when I realized that you'd have the song that you knew, but then they did it as a waltz, and they did it as just a straight, like Strawberry Fields could just be John Lennon with a guitar instead of all the crazy stuff. And a good song can take all these different shapes, and it's almost kind of cool to see it reinvented. I
agree, and I obviously huge Beatles fan. Grew up listening to all the Beatles stuff, but the White Album was something that was on, and I can't remember if it was disc 1 or disc 2. It was back in the USSR was the first song, but like it's just weird to think about what a weird album that is. But that to me was like, oh, this is what music is. So I think that explains a lot of like some of the quirky stuff.
Like it could be all over the place. It could be silly and
it
serious,
can be like orchestral, and it can be silly, and it can be like it's almost like making just having fun and like not taking it things so seriously.
Yeah.
Which I just has felt really good. Yeah. I was going to say something else, but now I forgot.
Yeah, that's how it goes on here. It's just, we embrace the tangents.
Hurricane brain.
Yeah. And you can come back to it or not. I usually tell people at the top, you're encouraged to contradict yourself too. You're encouraged to say things that you listen back to tomorrow and be like, I don't even feel that way. It's like, that's fine. It's just what you said in the moment. You know? It's very loose.
Oh yeah. Well, you got me back. So, yeah, well, I was just thinking like, so my last album that I did solo and produced at home was an all covers album.
Oh, nice. I love covers.
Yeah. So it's that exact thing of like, there's so many different ways to interpret a song with great lyrics and a great melody and whatever. And so I was doing a lot of covers at shows and people were like, you should record these, you know?
Yeah.
And so actually during the beginning of like the pandemic lockdown, I started working on that. Yeah, that also informed a lot of like, again, taking great works and learning how they work and then, you know, reinterpreting them. It's very educational, you know,
Totally.
As a musician, you're like, oh damn, what a cool choice, you know, or I would never do that vocal shift right there, but I'll try it.
Yeah, I think most of the songs or like I've written have been from another song from some other person, you know, and it's like the farther away from what I do the song is, almost the better it is.
Right.
If you try to copy somebody that's not like you at all, and then you end up with this morphed weird, you know, rip off that nobody knows is a rip off.
So this is I just saw Silas and I just rewatched I Love You Man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The bromance from like the 2000s. I do remember that. Oddly,
I
They're like
recommend
into
a
Rush,
rewatch.
right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so they do. Tom Sawyer is one of like Rush's biggest songs, and they do it on that. Well, some of my fans, I think they were like, "Can Eleanor do it?" Because I mean, people would request every different kind of song. Like I was covering. Push It, Salt and Pepper, you know, and like, but they asked for me to cover Tom Sawyer, and so I had to learn how to play a Rush song.
Oh no!
On banjo and
they're
vocal.
hard.
Oh my god, it was so hard. I was just like, this is da 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 da. I mean, it was. I think they were laughing the whole time, just like, oh my god, she did it. I can't say it was great, but I mean, again, even like learning to do a Rush song, it's a great challenge. Learning to do a Queen song is really difficult. I learned We Are the Champions, and that's a really hard song to play and sing.
Yeah, a lot of chords and stuff. Yeah. And then when you finish something like that, I think like it's just you got new pathways in your brain lit up, and you go down to a blank page to do your thing, and it's just gonna be different.
Absolutely, exactly.
Yeah. One of my favorite, like I remember Cat Power did some cover albums, and she was one of the ones that really like set me free as far as like you don't even have to have the melody or the chords be like, it can almost be like I was in the early days, I was like so obsessed with like learning things correctly. Right. But then as I've gotten older, it's like the more warped, the more you even just change the whole song. It's like, that's almost cooler to me now. Just like take it somewhere where you don't even realize you know the song till like halfway through it.
Right. No. Yeah. And like when I do covers, I'm pretty liberal with like the interpretation, but I find like when we were covering songs with the middle school that I was teaching, they the kids were like, no, we have to do it this part and it has to sound like this, and then there's this part, and I'm like, y'all are really you can't recreate what they did. I promise you that. Like it's better if you take it and you kind of like figure out what you're good at and then plug that in, because you're never going to sound like $100,000 record with like
why even it's always going to be like, well, it's not as what the original so it's almost like go the opposite direction and make some weird like a YouTube cover. I always prefer it to be some reimagined crazy different thing. It's like, well, it's almost as good and the same, but why would I could just watch the original.
It's already been exactly. Why would I so it's interesting, and I find like I'll bring a cover song to my band and they'll be like, oh, let me listen to the bass line and see how it goes. And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I mean, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, you just play whatever bass line you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people have a different like instinct on, you know, how closely they want to try and match an original.
Yeah. Yeah, I love covers. I've always loved covers. It seems like there's almost two types of, like, I know some bands, I think like U2, they said that they couldn't figure out how to play other people's songs. And they weren't, so they just had to make their own. So it almost seems like musicians will either just make up their own thing, or you learn a bunch of covers and you kind of learn how things work, like you're saying, the structures and the stuff.
Totally.
Yeah, that's interesting working with kids though. Like, is that, cause we've had kids for like 13 years now. So, I mean, absolutely just being around kids and like reading all the kids books, like all my song and art started having like animals in them and stuff. Cause we're like reading, there's like when you're kind of engaging with kids,
right?
And it seeps in. I love that. Like what the White Album to me is like very kid,
yes,
you know, like
it is.
Bungalow Bill.
Right.
Even the Disturbing Tales are kind of like these kids stories.
They're so weird.
And
they're so weird.
Has it? So you found that it's like kind of seeped into your own stuff, or?
Yeah, but the kids I work with are middle schoolers, so they're not like into animals.
They're not like babies.
Yeah, no, they're into like love. They're into sappy love stories and like
Billie Eilish and stuff like that.
Yeah, a little bit Billie Eilish, but like
Taylor Swift.
100% Taylor Swift. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of Taylor Swift up in there.
We listen to a lot of Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
Sometimes they'll be at a comedy show and they'll be like, "Who likes Taylor Swift?" And I clap and they're like, "What? Oh, you have daughters." I'm like, "Wait, it's good. It's good.
Yeah,
it's good." I don't know if I ever would have found it if I didn't have daughters or kids, but
I think it was
there's
her.
a lot of craft there.
Oh, 100%.
I mean,
no, she's super talented.
Her phrasing and just all
and she works with great producers. I mean, she's doing all the things, man. I mean, Taylor Swift's doing all right.
Yeah, I think she's like, I don't know if people know, but she's good.
She's up and coming.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. But I think her album, I think it was 1989. I think that is my favorite album in terms of, like the pop sentiment, like it's a little dreamy and vibey. And I really like that about like the electronic part of music, which that's kind of hard to create those like vibey layers. I guess pedal steel would be in that, but would achieve that. But yeah, I like her style.
Yeah,
I don't have any. I'm not like listening to her on my own time now. Yeah, but I respect it.
Yeah, that's like I'll go see Inside Out 2.
Yeah,
in the theater.
Oh, I heard that's
cry,
fantastic.
but I'm like, if I didn't have kids, I probably wouldn't be here.
No,
but I am here, and it's fucking good.
No, Silas and I are going to see that without kids. So.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah.
That's just I've heard it's great. I've heard it's very emotional, and also like Wild Robot. Have you seen that yet? Mm-mm. Okay, that's another like family friendly movie that I've heard is worth a see.
Like you can be a grown up and still get something out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess teenagers aren't quite the same as like reading animal books to.
Yeah, no, because they try to find like what's interesting to them is stuff that's edgy to them. So they want to try and like find what is the song that's going to be slightly inappropriate for a 13-year-old to sing. Yeah. And then as a teacher and you have to figure out how to walk that line because you want them to have buy-in and have interest, but
you don't want a mob of parents with pickets.
That's right. That's right.
Next day at school.
That's right. Yeah.
There she is.
Yeah. So
we're singing about drugs and sex. It's good.
There's a lot of that that these kids find interesting because it's just they're curious. You know? So.
Yeah, we have like my almost 13-year-old who's named Eleanor.
Oh, really?
She's like really into just like playing piano and classical music and stuff.
That's
but then
awesome.
Our 8-year-old is like super into like Olivia Rodrigo.
Yes.
So she's into like a lot of the really don't even know the names of all the artists, but kind of like what you're saying about kind of pushing we gave her Spotify, not for kids, but regular Spotify.
Yeah.
And then we went and saw like all the, she's listening to, we were like, oh my God. Like, so then we had to bump her down to Spotify Kids, and she's like, this sucks. I can't even listen to like the cool stuff. But she like loves this like scandalous
like Chaperone and stuff.
Yeah, just like all this really like sexy kind of, and we're just like, is this bad for a 8-year-old in 2024? I mean,
the stuff I was listening to in middle school, it was pretty bad.
Was it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like I was super into R&B and hip hop, so 90s R&B and hip hop was a lot about, the gangster lifestyle.
Oh yeah, that stuff.
And different terms for women, and
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
Like so, I guess misogyny.
Tons of misogyny, and but that was what we thought was cool, and
yeah, like the Chronic stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
still sounds so good.
It's so good though.
Yeah,
it is so good.
It's like that kind of stuff. It's like, well, I mean, is that what? I mean, now they're growing up where they're just like all the information you want forever instantly. So it's like it's almost like erring on the side of like, well, let's have a conversation about it. If you want to go in and we'll watch some videos together and then we can talk about it. I'd rather you do that than have like secretly be listening to it with kids at school and who knows what, because it's still art. Like I'm kind of like, we're a bunch of liberal artists. Like, I mean, this feels weird to censor them. But then some of the stuff, you're like, you're 8, dude. This is like, I don't know if
you're 8. I don't envy parents' decisions these days.
Yeah.
It seems like really difficult to thread that needle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever but is your stuff like fairly clean, you think? Like,
it is.
Do you ever feel like you have to make calls about like dropping F-bombs or certain topics?
So I do have, for the first time ever, one cuss word in a song on the new album.
Whoa.
It's the SH apostrophe T word.
Yeah.
And for the first time I had to click explicit lyrics on my submission, which I was like, is that even explicit? I'm not sure, but I guess it is. It doesn't seem like it should be these days.
One little SH.
That's what I think.
I think you're erring on wholesome.
I am. I'm very wholesome. But like when you work with kids, I've always loved being with kids and working with kids and teaching kids. I think I'm always thinking a little bit like I need to be concerned about being seen as a role model, and I don't want to. I want to be my authentic self, but I also want to be a decently good role model. So it is difficult sometimes because I'm like, do I want to be saying what I'm saying? And is one of my students or future or past, like, going to listen to this and be like, wait a second, that's not what she made us think I don't know. Or like, just make anyone uncomfortable, I guess, is the thing. So honestly, that's why one of the reasons I stopped teaching this past year is because this new album is it's not that explicit, but
you
for
chose
me,
the monster over the wholesome.
I did. I'm like, let me just fully lean into the music right now and not think about being a role model, and just kind of like untether myself to that for a period of time and see where it goes.
Yeah. I wonder if do you feel like coming out of more like roots music, was there more pressure, you think, for that? Or not pressure, but is that sort of the convention for that style of music, and maybe the audience might be a little less wanting to hear you like swearing a bunch? Yeah,
I would say it's possible that it was the genre itself, although I think there's a pretty great audience for like outlaw country and all that. So I don't think I just don't think that was really me. I think, again, I've always wanted to portray myself like as appropriate for kids, and just, there's definitely sexual content in Underhill Rose stuff, but it's a little poetic, it's a little thinly veiled, and
like if you're a kid, it might just go over your head. You
I think so, right? So there's nothing like trying to be edgy. I just don't I don't feel like I don't know why I'm thinking to say this, but I just don't feel like a fighter in that way. Like, I don't feel like that's a cross to bear for me. I don't care. I just don't care.
And I think it's better to be clean. Like as a comedian, there's only a few of us in Asheville that can even work clean. So it's like, hey, there's like a gig out in the Kingsport in some place where there's gonna be nice old people that came from church, and like we need somebody to tell jokes. Like most people are like, well, that's not my art, like I'm edgy, and it's like, well, I kind of like to try to perform for everybody as best I can. But what I find is when I'm going to the mics and I'm starting new material, I watch it back and I'm like cursing a lot because I don't believe in the material yet, and I'm just trying to get a reaction, and I don't like it that there's like extraneous F-bombs that don't add to it. But then if I craft the bit long enough and it goes in my act, then clean is always my kind of long-term goal, with a few exceptions. But I'll notice I kind of swear by default, and it's almost like
interesting,
kind of like a defense mechanism.
Yeah, Hail Mary.
Just trying to make something.
We were talking about this, I think, a little bit at Tom Chalmers, the Story Parlor thing is like, I mean, I completely respect clean, like comedians. Probably the most. There's a few that I do like Chris Rock, who is not very clean, but I think like it does take maybe more craft, and it does, it almost is like that's low hanging fruit to just be edgy, shocking or edgy for that sake. And it's like growing up, I never was in a household that spoke, with a lot of cuss words. So it's just like, I don't know, a feeling of wanting to respect, like, and be respected. But sometimes crude stuff can be hilarious.
Yeah.
Just depends.
Yeah, if it needs to be.
Just depends.
We're in a weird place now with comedy where, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Kill Tony, and just there's kind of this, pushback of like, I don't know. It's like there's a lot of comedy now that's just shock for people that are starting that are just like, oh, it's a place to say all the naughty things you can't say, and it's like, well, you got to have jokes too. So it's common. So I hate it when I see myself on like footage of me and I'm like cursing, but there's not really like a great joke there, or like it's just like So but I also like I curse around my kids sometimes. I'm just kind of like, you should know. Don't curse at school in front of your grandma, but these are the words. Like, I slammed my hand really hard. It felt good to say it.
Oh, totally.
I stand by that. So I'm kind of trying to navigate all that. It's like an experiment with kids, to see like in what ways I'll screw them up and in what ways I'm being like progressively good. Like in 20 or 30 years, they'll tell me. Like,
remember that thing you did? Yeah, I find like if cuss words are used sparingly, they have much more power too. If like every other word is a cuss word, it's kind of like, okay,
one SH word every 10 years, and it's like,
well,
bam,
that's not enough. that's not enough. But that's cool that you actually watch your stuff back though, because
it's brutal.
It's so brutal. It's so brutal.
It's like, why am I doing this?
No, I know. And then I think that honestly, I've stopped watching myself a lot. I know I should to learn and to change and improve, but it is so brutal. I'm like, I quit. Every time I watch something, I'm just like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I've gotten pretty good at listening back. So a lot of times I'll just listen back, but I have the footage, and then I'm like, if I want to cut a reel out, then I'll be like, well, it sounded good enough, so I'll go look at it. But it really can be. Watching it is just so painful. But knowing that that's how we all really feel, so it's like you can desensitize.
Right.
Like I'm sure at first hearing yourself sing or talk was maybe painful, and maybe not, but for me I got used to it. It's like the more you do it,
totally and I think it really it depends. Like there are times when I hear myself back and I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty good. And then there are times when I'm like, I should not be in this business. What am I doing?
So for me, it's even the same recording, like one day to the next too. So that tells me that it's like I'm just cannot be objective about myself.
No doubt. I think that's correct.
And then some of my favorite singers are like, I love like Daniel Johnston, and so like I get down with like outsider art that isn't technically good too. So even when I'm like don't think I sound on key. I'm like, well, maybe it,
Totally.
it's charmingly off.
Yeah, I mean, think about Bob Dylan and Tom Petty, and you know, I mean, there's tons of singers that I like and respect that are not, they're not going to be singing an aria anytime soon. So, but there's charisma and there's conviction and expression, and obviously great songwriters as well. But so I think I do try and remind myself of that.
Yeah, Lucinda Williams is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah,
and I remember reading an interview with her early on, and she was like, I always knew I love Joni Mitchell, but I could never like sing like Joni Mitchell. But I was like, maybe I could do the Bob Dylan thing where it's like an interesting kind of like weird voice.
She does, and she's she's a great songwriter, and she totally has a unique voice. Joni Mitchell is one I grew up with hearing a lot, and it's interesting too because I feel like her voice was kind of the ideal voice for a minute there, but aesthetics change too, so if you were singing like Joni Mitchell today, it's probably going to sound really it's just going to sound really retro, so it's
like so 60s sounding,
right,
like the
exactly.
flower power kind of
like extreme vibrato and just a different feel.
Case of You destroys me like no other song. It's just like so beautiful.
That is beautiful. Yeah.
So did you have like musical family or people, was it around?
Yeah. So
growing up?
Kind of an interesting story with my mom is that, so I grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia. So there was the colonial Williamsburg reenactment town, and both of my parents worked there. My dad worked in the lumberyard. My mom was a balladeer in the taverns.
Wow.
So she would walk around in her colonial garb with a guitar singing old English ballads.
She literally had a job that like was like 400 years old.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes. So I mean, you wonder how I was got into folk music, like that. She was very much instrumental in that, and
not 400 years, but something like that.
So
she would sing
300.
She would sing those old songs, like the real old ones. Wow.
Totally. Yeah, like Whiskey in the Jar, and like I can't even think of like they're just like folk, not like the
not 60s,
not
like,
60s folk, but like the old school stuff. A lot of murder ballads, you know.
Right. There's no movies, so it's like we can't watch them.
That's right.
We got to just hear somebody sing about murder.
Exactly.
We don't have true crime yet, so
the first true crime. Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. So she played guitar and she also played piano. She taught me how to play piano. I was in the middle school band. I played trombone. I got really into jazz band on trombone, and then she taught me how to play guitar. And
that's nice. You got the jazz and the folk, so you got the opposite.
Totally, yeah. And I think
the notes and
all the notes,
a few of the chords.
Yeah. So, between the trombone, the piano, and the guitar, that was kind of my foundation as a kid. And then kind of brought it all to banjo, but now able to bring again like all the instruments in. Like I have an upright piano at my house, so that's going to be on some of the tracks. And like I actually have my sister's old trumpet. I have my old trombone. There's some layers of that in there.
Cool.
Along with synth, synth horns. So I usually kind of layer real instruments with the synth instruments to kind of make it something. I don't know what it is.
It's just some new thing, like a hybrid of like organic and synthesized.
Exactly. Musical family. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's like we have like the Beatles White Book there. We'll like sing a lot of songs for our kids. So of course I always want them to go out. We have like a drum set and stuff in the shed. I'm always trying to get people to come out and jam with me. But the more you try to get your kids to, I haven't figured out how to trick them into like writing songs and doing. I think they can sense that I'm like so excited that if anybody wanted to,
I feel like there's popsicles in the studio,
please,
in the shed.
It's just
this piano is so cool too. I love that green.
Oh yeah, thanks. Emily painted that green. That's
I like that.
It needs a tuning, but it is it is fun. There's nothing like just a organic piano.
Totally.
I'm a hack piano player, but I can do the blocky chords.
Yeah, me too. That's
Yeah.
about where I'm at too. Yeah. And the beautiful thing with like, I don't know if you've done much with like synth on like a recording program.
Like MIDI stuff?
Yeah, MIDI. You can actually like manipulate the data. And like, let's say you hit the wrong note, you can like drag it to the right note. Yeah. Little secret. And so yeah, they're like, I almost feel myself getting lazier because I know I don't have to play something perfectly. I can now play it ish and then like fix it. So
yeah, it is weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my feeling as like a middle-aged person is like, well, we learned how to do it all when it was hard.
Yeah.
So we should be allowed to fix whatever we want in
like
the computer.
that.
You know, I mean, it's kind of weird to, I guess, if you're starting now, it's like, well, why would you ever even have to learn how to execute it? That's why it's almost like I've become more of a Stones than a Beatles fan just in the last few years. I always liked the Beatles. Still love the Beatles, but like the Stones are always a little bit out of tune and a little bit out of time, and everything's just a little wrong sounding. And now that anyone can make a perfect sounding recording, it's like when you have that off key note, it's like, wait, don't just fix it immediately. Like, sit with it for a week, because
Totally.
To me, those flaws are the real like humanity. So
100%.
I kind of like computers and all that, but then like I still want it to be a little out of key.
Oh, 100%. You don't want it to be too perfect.
Yeah.
It sounds, robotic.
Yeah.
I totally agree about the Stones. Like, I think that was very intentional on their part. I did read some of Keith Richards' autobiography. But he was talking about like some beautiful flippancy. I can't remember the exact phrasing, but I was like, oh yeah, that's perfect. It's just like, if you listen to like the tambourine hits on a few songs and you're just like, what? It's like
not even close.
It's like not even close. And they're just like, but it feels kind of like a jolly party because it is so loose and like little falling apart, but like it has a vibe.
Yeah, the White Stripes were huge for me because like in the 90s I had my little 4-track and we would record it, and then we'd like save up money and go to the cheesy studio guy who was like, you have to and it has to be perfect, and he like knew more about tech, so we got like intimidated. But I always kind of liked when like the Kinks and the Stones and things that sounded wrong, and then when like the White Stripes came out in like 2000 or what, it just totally validated. I was like, it's so like Meg's drumming is like off, and it's like the tambourine hits are off, and it's like, yes.
I
was like, I knew it. I knew you were allowed to do this, and now I've been validated.
No doubt. And it's like that. I think it reflects. I think we as humans connect with that because it feels, flawed.
Yeah.
And we are flawed.
Right.
And so
it's more honest.
It is honest, and I think sometimes when you like. It's really interesting as someone who like records myself. I'm kind of battling between showing the flaws because I think people will emotionally connect with that and like wanting to portray the best possible version of myself. Yeah. And so, like I've been thinking about wanting to record a cover of Your Love Keeps Lifting Me Higher and Higher. And, I've like, over the last couple of days, just been re-singing it. And, like a one take, you feel when it's a one take and there's like maybe a couple little flat moments or like some weird scratches or something like that. But there's so much emotion that can be, you lose emotion if you're like overly chopping it up and like hyper producing
it sterile.
Exactly. But then like you listen to like some pop music that is the industry standard, it is perfectly curated, and so it's hard to know where you want to be.
Like who's
in
it
that
for?
world.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I'll play some of the stuff for like my kids, and I hate to get the retro, and like my kid that's 8 that likes all the new sounds.
Yeah,
this like sounds like old timey,
Yeah, right.
But I'm like, well, maybe it's who's it for? And there's that line between like human and real and vulnerable, and like this dude can't even sing. Why would I listen to this? Like that? It's just like that line, you know, and trying to like, I don't know. Like Neil Young was like one where there's like some people were just like, he can't sing. It sounds bad. And other people are like, that's why he sings so good.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, like trying not to be for everybody, like trying to be comfortable with some people being like, this sucks, you know. It's almost like if some people hate it, maybe it is more interesting. You know?
Yeah, it's definitely
just medium
right.
good for everyone. Everyone's like, no, it's pretty good. you want a few people to be like, this sucks. It's like still a
at least there's some sort of reaction. Of like, this is making me feel a way,
right?
As opposed to this is just a thing. Like, I kind of have a joke with Silas, who like whenever we see a movie and we're like don't have anything to say about it, we just say it's a movie. Because his brother-in-law said that once after a movie, and for some reason it was just like the most unexpected thing. So yeah, that's kind of where we go. Huh? It was a movie.
It was a movie.
Does
that necessarily mean you didn't care for it?
It kind of does. Okay, like I guess it means there was nothing terribly wrong with it, but there was nothing terribly right with it.
It kind of just made it into like there was, you know, the microphones were placed in a but it wasn't like, wow.
We're never going to talk about this after this moment.
Let's move on with our lives.
We're never going to watch it again. But I guess it was a success. They were, I listened to, Pop Culture Happy Hour. It's an NPR podcast, and they were talking about, Beetlejuice. And like, I don't know if you've seen it or
I'm aware that it's back.
Okay.
It's a reboot or a sequel or something.
It's a sequel. Yeah. And people are kind of all over the place on how, like, was it great? Was it terrible? Like, some people really liked it. I thought it was not very good. Yeah. And then they were talking about it on Pop Culture Happy Hour. They were like, was this a fiasco or was it just not good? And they were just trying to like define, was it like a bright shiny failure or was it just a failure?
Yeah.
I love how
what kind of failure was it?
Yeah, exactly. Was it a fiasco or not? Like, it's a very specific, type of critique, but
it's so hard to do here's the thing we all loved when we were kids and now we're going to do it for our kids. It's like, man, I'm trying to think like what even pulled. It's so hard to pull that off. Right. It's like Star Wars or something. It's like, I wouldn't even probably like it if I saw it as a grown dude. Right. You know, it's like I kind of needed to be a kid in the 80s to like it the first time. You kind of got to be there.
Yeah. I mean, they did, what was the one with the three witches? The Halloween movie.
Was it the one with practical magic?
No, not practical magic. That is the one with three witches. Yes.
I've never seen that. But
oh man, I feel so dumb right
80s
now.
Or?
Yeah. But they just redid it like 2 years ago.
Is it goofy?
Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker.
The Craft. No. We're going to go through all of them.
Oh my God. We know all of the movies, but not that one. Anyway, they redid it. I actually thought it was pretty good. Yeah. But
not sequel, but they just redid the story.
No. It was a sequul.
Okay. The characters are older.
This is so annoying for whoever's listening to this. They're like, we know the name of it.
Yeah.
What the heck? Anyway, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't crazy about Beetlejuice, but the novelty of that world was what made it so groundbreaking, I think. And so like the novelty's gone in the second one, and it just felt like.
I mean, like Tim Burton's like world.
They were kind of yeah, and I love the creativity and the design and everything, but like. It felt like they were throwing everything at it. Like there were too many characters that you're like, these people don't even like live in the same world. And anyway,
I often feel that way. Like my favorite movies are like the ones that are just like in real time. It's like 2 hours. Like Richard Linklater's probably my favorite. Like Before Sunrise, where it's it's just like it's basically this. Like it's like this is what I love about this. Like this is so raw. It's like we're just talking. It's in real time. And the more it's like, yeah, you try to cram. Like there's a crazy neighbor, and then there's the thing, and there's flashbacks, and it's like, the more you try to cram it, it gets stressful to me to try to even keep up with it.
Right.
Where it's like just the simpler it is.
Yeah.
The better. But that's also, I have trouble like following complex plots. So that might just be a personal preference. But yeah, a lot of times it feels like they'll bring it back and then they try to like do 10x of the original. Yes,
they did. They tried to do too much. But speaking of real time, like Silas just saw, I don't know why I keep talking about.
We can talk about Silas. He's going to come on. We're going to reschedule with him.
Yeah. Good. He just saw the Saturday Night Live movie. That's like a it's not a documentary, but it's like in real time, 2 hours before the beginning of the first airing of Saturday Night Live.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, it's just like everything that was going on leading up to that first airing.
That sounds good.
He said it was pretty good. So
that just
probably
made me
be
think
up
of
your
like
alley.
The Beatles, like the Get Back thing.
Yeah.
Where they were. I mean, that's like 10 hours of them just set. But I love the real.
Just
that's what I love about
people.
this. Is it's like I feel like the more I've gotten into this, I'm like, why would I watch people pretend to say their own words? Why are we spending so much time and money creating fake things when like the most interesting thing is just like the real people talking? There's like a lull. There's like somebody says the wrong. Like that's more interesting. It's like the song that's got the off-key notes. Like I'm just getting more and more into like warped, like weird, not perfect things the older I get. Well, like computers, you can it's so easy to make things perfect now and do editing that it's like, I don't know.
It's probably what we need more of to the antidote to the everything being kind of processed.
Yeah. But that sounds great. Like I can picture like the 2 hours before the first set, just like messy. Like it's like just a real.
Yeah, you might be stressed out though.
Yeah.
Because I think it is stressful, but it is one, like almost a single shot, I think.
Yeah. Did you watch the Beatles? Any of that? Like the 10 ridiculous hours of them doing the.
I have not seen that.
Yeah, you don't need to. It's like
I think that might give me PTSD of like shows. Like I have bad dreams where I'm like showing up to a show and I don't have my banjo and like something's out of tune and like I can't fix it. Like I don't know if I want to watch that, but
you don't need to. But it's interesting because they're just at the end and they're kind of just picking at each other and they're like and like they're trying to do. I think it's Let It Be is what they end up releasing later, but then they like. Paul has this idea to just film them making a thing. It's kind of like what people are doing now. He was trying to do it in the late 60s. And like, they would just bring in like two of us and they'd start playing it. And everything they did sounded perfect. Like they would just play it for the first time. Like the harmonies, like it was like amazing. Yeah. But then they would be like, no, that's wrong. But they couldn't see that it was perfect because they were all just like, I don't know. It's weird. It's like what we perceive we're doing isn't necessarily
right.
I'm getting off on a pretty far tangent now.
No. Like we're not aware of like the staying power of something or like what it will become. But yeah, I think when you said they're picking at each other, I can see how they like. I know that they had that's a pressure cooker. Yeah, to be in a band and to especially with their fame and
the
notoriety
giant egos
and. Yeah, so I can imagine they were picking at each other a lot.
Yeah.
And my understanding is like the White Album, they were barely in the studio at the same time, like at all. So.
Yeah, I read a book by the Jeff Emmerich guy, and he said that was his least favorite one because he felt like it was basically like solo albums, like each of them were doing. Yeah. But I love it. I think it's almost better. Like it's maybe my favorite too.
It's just quirky.
It's just so much.
Hell. Yeah, and like. Yeah, I believe who's the fifth Beatle, the producer?
Oh, George Martin.
George Martin. Yeah. I think he said if he had it his way, he would have yanked a few of those songs off of there. And like, again, it's crazy to think about what if we didn't have some of those songs. Yeah. Because they are weird, but they're just fun and
Can you listen to the number 9 one? Can you sit and listen to that one? The one that's just all weird sounds and talking.
I'm wondering if that's on disc 1 because I only know one of the discs, which is weird. So the other one I almost don't
There's
know.
one
at
where it's like
all.
just a collage of weird sounds, and I think John Lennon was
that
like,
could have been pulled.
He was like, this is what all music's gonna sound like in 10 years. It's like,
Oh,
well,
interesting. Like, well,
that didn't happen.
not quite.
He went right about everything.
noise music. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you dabble in any other like arts besides making sounds?
I do. So I love visual art.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like drawing and a little bit of painting. I would say my strength is probably just like pen. So yeah, I actually have a website for my art too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. We should
Eleanor
link that.
Underhill. Yeah. I haven't been doing a lot lately, but for a while there I was doing some commissions, like portraits. Well, not portraits, but like more pet portraits. But like when I say portraits, it's more like take a picture of someone and recreate it in watercolor.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not sitting for hours in front of me. I'm not that good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can take photos. I've illustrated a couple books as well. So my
wow.
dad does woodworking, and he's released several books, and I illustrated one of them. So it was all technical woodworking illustrations.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're like from a real crafty. Like
yeah.
they do like the old ballads in the wood. That's like that's the classic stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of old stuff.
Do you have siblings?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I have an older sister. She's 2 years older. Yeah. She, all my family lives in like central North Carolina. And my parents bought an old mill house.
Of course they did.
Of course they did, you know? And so, yeah. And it's actually, a beautifully built kind of, big logs, and I feel like now I don't have the woodworking words that I should have, but like. Is
your sister a blacksmith by chance?
She's not. She's a web designer.
Okay.
So she really did a little curveball there, but at my folks' mill, it's like huge wood beams and like exposed beams, and like some of my albums, I love to go to that space and do recordings there because it's just a beautiful large room with some nice wood ambiance, and nice good acoustics exactly.
Good vibes
exactly. Yep. And then Silas and I are actually just finishing up a music studio in our backyard. So we're moving our stuff out of our little offices and into the backyard,
like a shed.
It is
situation?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a 12 by 24.
I love my shed.
Yeah,
just got it.
Yeah,
the drums are just always set up. You don't have to. It just is ready.
I'm saying I can't wait to like not pack everything up all the time.
Yeah.
So we're finishing that out, and then like speaking of wood and just like nerding out on acoustics, my dad's friend had all this reclaimed beadboard, and so we got a lot of that and basically did all the ceiling in beadboard. And so hopefully we're going to get a nice unique warm sound in there.
Yeah,
so we're working on that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Hell
excited. Yeah.
That's cool that you come from like people that are into that stuff.
Yeah,
into just crafting things, wood, sound.
Yeah,
the timeless things that are awesome, not the fad stuff.
Yeah, it is cool. I'm definitely grateful. I've learned a lot about like being handy and making music. I guess the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree ish. I don't know.
Do you and your mom make music
we
together?
Do. And so after I get this this album out, Just Enough Trouble, my next two projects are a new Underhill Rose album, which Molly and I have been talking about forever.
Yeah.
And life happens, so we've got some songs and we're excited to like really get that going. But I also am working on a holiday album with my mom.
Ooh.
Yeah.
For this year?
Nah, it'll be
that's soon.
It'll be next year, if not even after that.
I guess if you're releasing your thing in November, that's going to be way too soon.
Yeah, and the weird thing is like with holiday albums, you kind of want to get it out in like probably September.
Right. Yeah, it's already kind of too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not ideal. I'm releasing an album right between a devastating hurricane or not in between, but like right after an election as well. And then there's Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it wasn't exactly how I wanted it to roll out, but here we are.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good.
I mean, for me, the hurricane, like the best thing about it is that it has made me not think about the election. It's been this long, painful, divided, tense, horrible year.
Right.
Whose side are you on? But now it's like, everybody's like, do you need some water? Let's get to know our neighbors'
totally
names.
agree.
It's really been nice to just, I'm like, let's ride this community vibe out
I totally
through
agree.
the election. It's really nice. That's one thing that's been cool is I've just been feeling like really worried about humanity and people in the future, and this, like, the worst of times bring out the best in people thing has really happened. Like, so it's been positive. Obviously, like, a lot of horrible things have happened and people are not with us anymore, but the community aspect, really nice at the end of the election year.
I totally agree. I've seen people come together that it's been beautiful, all the different people of different, religions and political persuasions or whatever, like rolling up on each other property, like, hey, you doing okay? Do you need anything? And I miss that, and I really want to hold on to that. I think we need that as a country to just know that we are all have a lot more in common and can help each other out a lot. Yeah,
there's only like 4 things we disagree on. Like, why do we have to always talk about abortion? Like, we agree on 90% of stuff. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That it can feel like we don't get along when we do. Yeah.
I won't address the abortion part.
Yeah, sorry. I probably shouldn't say that word on
you just brought it up.
Your wholesome podcast.
No, well, it's not that. But I mean, I think there can be arguments made for why it needs to be addressed. But I mean, I'm just the kind of person that's like, I don't need you to agree with me on stuff. It's like, I am very much like, just not, I don't know. I think you're a liberal.
Well, yeah, I am. I always have been, but I see the value in both sides now, and I think as I get older, it's like, I think the main thing is like, just because I feel a certain way about an issue doesn't mean I need you. I don't think you're wrong if you feel the other way. Like, I'm very just, it's all good, let's get along.
It gets exhausting to constantly feel like it's us and them. Yeah. And I think it's good for us to try to lean in onto where we agree and our common, needs as humans and animals and, humans. That is to say that humans are animals. I don't mean our pets or whatever, but I'm just to say, we're all just simple beings.
Yeah. Well, should we wrap up on that note? We've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes.
Dang. Let's wrap it on up.
Yeah. Well, we'll put some links down there. You got the album. It's going to be fully released next month.
That's right.
And maybe we should link your visual art as well.
Okay.
That sounds
That'd be
cool.
Great. Yeah.
I always like when people have like secret skills you don't know about.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you asking. No, I love to share that.
Some people might want to see some woodworking illustrations.
Sure. They're on there. They're on my website. So absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
totally.
Eleanor, thank you for doing the podcast.
Thank you. This has been so much fun.
Yeah.
Appreciated the conversation.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool.